Welcome back to Fox 5's On the Hill Live this Sunday morning. You know, hard to believe, but there are just 2 weeks before the election, and both candidates continue to go after undecided voters and focus in on those battleground states. They are also targeting specific voting groups, as we just talked about a few moments ago. Both appeared on Fox News this past week. Kamala Harris sat down with Bret Baier for a one-on-one interview.
So, you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make.
Former President Donald Trump also appeared on Fox News at the Faulkner Focus. He focused his criticism on Harris and the southern border.
She's destroying our country. I don't want to use the word destroyed because that makes it sound like it can't come back, but it's awfully close. She is the worst. He made her border czar. She never even went there. The Border Patrol yesterday, 2 days ago, thousands of them, the whole thing, 100%, unanimous, every single person, thousands of them, they endorsed me, and they work for her.
All right, let's get to work. Laura Davison is the politics editor with Bloomberg, and Jesse Byrnes is senior editor with The Hill. My friends, thanks for being back with us. What did you think of Kamala Harris's appearance on Fox News?
She was clearly prepped for this. When she was asked 2 weeks ago, you know, what would your presidency, how would it differ from Joe Biden's? She was not prepared for that question. She sort of, said, well, there's really nothing I would change, and then came back later in the interview and said, well, one thing is I would have a Republican in my cabinet. And in the past several weeks, we've seen all these undecided voters largely have broken for Trump. The polls have tightened, and they've been breaking for Trump, and her campaign has recognized that they need to do more outreach to independents, to people who consider themselves Republicans if they're going to win the race.
Jesse, she did have trouble on that answer, but at the same time, Trump gave some meandering answers in his discourse. Was this a wash, or did one of them wind up having an advantage coming out of it?
Yeah, I agree that Vice President Harris was definitely more prepared for that interview, but on the question of how is she different than Biden, she's really struggled on this. People have had to pull that answer out of her, and she has taken weeks and weeks to actually get to the point of saying, I'm going to be different on housing, I'm going to be different on Medicare. So it's really, voters typically vote for what you're going to get from a candidate. They aren't voting for the past 4 years. And so for her, having a clear vision. But it's true that Trump is definitely, we've seen, having these very, very long campaign appearances, 80 minutes, 90 minutes. These are longer than we've seen in 4 years ago and 8 years ago. And so keeping the attention of people is going to be really key these final couple weeks.
Obviously, there was a lot of attention focused on this scene where there was a gap in the microphone and Trump just stood on the stage for a long time. He has had to shoulder the brunt of carrying on these events because the show has been Donald Trump. Kamala Harris has been able to deploy these, surrogates across the country. Not only her vice president, now the Obamas are back in the mix. A field of governors have taken to stages across these battleground states. How much of a force does that make, an impression does that make with voters in these battleground states when you can deploy all these other people onto your stage, but yet Donald Trump winds up having pretty much to do it by himself?
It certainly helps gin up excitement if people say, oh, I can go, see Obama or, a popular governor in my state speak. She's also bringing out celebrities a lot. She had Usher and Lizzo with her this weekend campaigning. Her campaign has also been teasing this Get Out the Vote concert with a surprise musical guest just days before the election is supposed to take place. And so this is a way to kind of pick up these people who have not been paying attention, who don't like politics, but say, you know what, I really like Charlie XCX. Maybe I should, go out to this Harris event.
Yeah, Jesse, when we were talking with Aaron Zitner from the Wall Street Journal a minute ago, he kind of said at one point, shrugged his shoulders and said, surprise, it's tied. We knew this was going to be tight. One of the questions right now is we talked over the summer about this, wave of momentum that Harris had right out of the gate. Is the gas can starting to run out on that a little bit, or are we just seeing undecided voters starting to make up their mind now? Were we always going to wind up here?
I think it's pretty undeniable that the honeymoon period after the DNC was going to wear off. Right now, the Harris campaign is really focusing on how do they keep the gas on. And right now, the last couple of weeks, the big turnout motivator for Democrats is going to be focusing on Trump, going on the attack, because they know historically people, they might not vote for Harris's vision for the future, but they might vote against Trump's vision for the future. So that is definitely something to expect these last couple of weeks, because this honeymoon period has been over for a while, and a lot of Democrats are really rattled right now because they don't want a repeat of Hillary Clinton losing.
You know, one thing this time of year, every election year, we always talk about is the October surprise. Over the last couple of hours, a voluminous amount of documents have been released in Trump's January 6th. Is this too much, too little, in respect of having any sway over these undecided voters? Because it seems like Trump voters are going to vote for Trump no matter what comes out, and maybe not these documents are going to have any effect on them, but could it have an effect on swing voters?
Potentially, but probably only at the very marginist of margins. You know, we've seen all of Trump's legal troubles really, you know, not really deter people, and in some cases really help him, you know, both in fundraising and help his poll numbers. We saw that over the summer. People's opinions are so baked in on January 6th, it maybe sways, you know, I think we're talking dozens of voters.
You look at that, Jesse, though, and that does suggest that Trump has a locked-in base, but he needs to get past his locked-in base. Where is he as far as reaching out past what he knew he was already going to get from the get-go?
Well, I think he's definitely made a lot of strong strides when it comes to black men, Hispanic men. He has certainly gone after the Democratic coalition when it comes to those. His rhetoric on immigration has not turned off many Hispanics. And that's something Democrats just thought would happen automatically, and it really hasn't. And so he's put Harris on the defensive, but as we saw this week with the town hall on Fox, he also has to cut in on the margins on her lead among women. And so focusing on security, focusing on immigration are key issues, but also trying to modulate on the topic of abortion, because that's something he's really flip-flopped on several times we've seen this campaign cycle, and something that Harris is key to hit him on.
Yeah, and conservatives have not been happy about some of the things he's had to say about that. Let's flip that question around on Kamala Harris. How is she doing at reaching past her own base, reaching past her own supporters, and talking to those Republicans, talking to those independents, talking to the people at the very core middle who are going to decide this race?
This is something she realizes that she has a lot of work still to do. We really saw that in the messaging this week. She's been, you know, having events where she's on stage with, you know, with Republicans, people who were formerly in Trump's administration, who have said, you know, look, he is no longer fit to be president. She's been appearing with Liz Cheney, and also she's put out this this plan specifically for black men, talking to them directly, being, look, here is my plan on, you know, on the economy, on healthcare, on all these things. They weren't really new ideas, but repackaged, recognizing that she has some weaknesses there, and Trump has really built into what Democrats has been a base for them.
One question I've heard kicked around by a lot of folks is about these undecided voters. What do you make of somebody being that undecided at this point, 2 weeks before an election, where we have done nothing but talk about these two candidates nonstop for months? Yeah. How do we still have undecided voters?
Well, I think it just speaks to the reality that a lot of people are checked out of news, right? Yeah. And so we have people, as Aaron mentioned earlier in the show, trying to get those people who maybe haven't voted in a while, they voted a couple times in the last decade, getting them to the polls is key. So when you have Elon Musk in Pennsylvania promising $1 million for people to sign his petition to go out to vote, you know, things like that are trying to juice up people who really aren't that engaged to actually get involved in the process.
So, Laura, is it low information voting, or is it just people just are not plugged into this?
It's both. I mean, you recognize that a lot of people are getting their news from, you know, X or from Facebook, and that their, you know, kind of their perception of kind of the key issues in the race may not be as, you know, we in Washington are thinking about looking at these policy papers.
All right, Laura Davison, Jesse Byrnes, always a pleasure to have both of you here at this desk. We thank you so much. We're on our